The state of Louisiana will not file criminal charges against two white police officers in the fatal shooting of a black man in 2016. Alton Sterling was killed in a struggle outside a convenience store. Federal officials had already decided not to bring civil rights charges against the officers, and today the state attorney general followed suit.
Our investigation has concluded that Officers Lake and Salamone attempted to make a lawful arrest of Alton Sterling based upon probable cause. During that encounter, Mr. Sterling continued to resist the officers' efforts to arrest him.
The two officers said they found a loaded gun in Sterling's pocket, and Landry said today that it is likely he was under the influence of drugs. But Sterling's family rejected the findings and called the shooting unjustified.
They took a human away. They took a father away. They took somebody away that did not deserve to be away. The way they killed him was in cold blood.
The Sterling incident led to widespread protests, and days later, a black military veteran shot and killed 3 Baton Rouge police officers. Meanwhile, California's Attorney General is joining the investigation into the killing of an unarmed black man in Sacramento. 2 officers fired 20 times at Stephon Clark in the March 18th incident. They said they thought he had a gun. It turned out to be a cell phone. A former dean at Michigan State University was charged today in a widening sexual abuse scandal. William Strample appeared in court on charges that he failed to monitor Larry Nassar, the sports doctor convicted of abusing young gymnasts. Strample is also accused of harassing female students and pressing them for nude photos. The list of nations expelling Russian diplomats climbed above 24 today, with Australia and Ireland joining in. It's aimed at punishing Moscow for allegedly poisoning a former double agent in Britain. But in Uzbekistan, the Russian foreign minister promised his country will retaliate.
We will undoubtedly respond, because nobody wants to tolerate such boorish behavior, and we will not either. We know that this is the result of colossal pressure, colossal blackmail, which is now, unfortunately, the main tool of Washington on the international arena.
The United States announced Monday that it is kicking out 60 Russian diplomats and closing the Russian consulate in Seattle. Thousands of Russians protested today in the Siberian city of Kemerovo, demanding a full investigation of a shopping mall fire. Officials say at least 64 people died in Sunday's fire. Angry crowds turned out to dispute the official death toll. Parents showed photos of their children who had died. Nearby, Russia's President Vladimir Putin laid flowers at the scene of the fire and blamed criminal negligence.
What's happening here? This isn't war. It's not a spontaneous methane outburst in a mine. We're talking about losing so many people. Why? Because of some criminal negligence, because of slovenliness. How could this ever happen?
Putin has declared tomorrow a national day of mourning across Russia. Speculation swirled today around an armored train that may have carried North Korea's leader Kim Jong-un to China and back again. Heightened security around Beijing drove reports that Kim was on the train. It would have been his first trip abroad as leader. The unconfirmed visit came in advance of Kim's possible summit with President Trump in May. In Syria, war monitors say another 7,000 people left the ravaged eastern Ghouta suburbs outside Damascus today. Rebels and their families boarded buses bound for camps near the Turkish border. The Russians arranged it after a fierce Syrian government assault.
The regime made us displaced people, following torture, shelling, siege, and starvation. There was no medical aid, no food, no water. We've been sitting inside a basement for 2 months. We're living an impossible life, and we left by a miracle.
Thousands more rebels and civilians have evacuated the area since last week. Back in this country, Kentucky's Republican-run legislature has voted to ban a common abortion procedure after 11 weeks of pregnancy. It would be one of the country's most restrictive abortion laws, and now it waits for the Republican governor to sign it. Former U.S. Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens is calling for repeal of the Second Amendment to make gun control possible. In a New York Times essay, he writes that repeal would, quote, move Saturday's marchers closer to their objective than any other possible reform. Stevens opposed the court's 2008 decision that found the Second Amendment guarantees gun ownership. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg declined today to appear before a British parliamentary committee investigating, quote, fake news. Instead, he offered to send other senior executives. Separately, U.S. congressional committees are asking Zuckerberg to testify about the use of Facebook user data in the 2016 U.S. elections. Wall Street backed up today as Facebook's troubles helped drag down tech stocks. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost nearly 345 points to close at 23,857. The Nasdaq fell 211 points, nearly 3%, and the S&P 500 dropped 46. And 3 former presidents eulogized former Georgia Governor and Senator Zell Miller at his funeral in Atlanta today. Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, and George W. Bush all remembered Miller as a bipartisan force who transcended ideology. He was a Democrat, but he backed Bush in 2004. Still to come on the NewsHour, why a citizenship question could compromise the accuracy of the U.S. Census. Former President Jimmy Carter on North Korea and the Trump administration. Low-wage workers struggling to keep a roof over their heads, and much more.